This is an array of 8 values ranging from 0 to 255. To better visualize it, let each element be a shade. That's better. Also, let's shift all the values such that they are centered around 0. Now try to see if you can recognize any patterns within this array of pixels. No? Let's try with another version. Here. Now we can clearly see that based on the values, this array of pixels looks like a cosine wave going from 1 to 0. If we take 8 equally spaced points on the trigonometric function, they match. We see that this is also true where the previous array can be represented as 29 cos 4x plus 38 cos 7x. Now let's think about this for a moment. For a given array of values, can we express all the values as a weighted sum of different constants, that is in this case equally sampled cosine waves? When I say equally sampled, we take points at a constant interval. For example, the samples of cos 1x look like a smooth descent from 1 to minus 1. This is the basic idea behind the discrete cosine transform. A normal computer assesses an image pixel by pixel. That is, it evaluates every pixel as if it's unique and does not consider any relation it might have with its neighboring pixels. But that is not the case. If we see an image over here and take a random 8 by 8 matrix of pixels, we can see that a pixel shows information that is closely related to its neighboring pixels. So, you won't see a bright pink pixel in a dull hazy sky image. What a discrete cosine transform does is that it takes the image and interprets it in a different way. This process is analogous to the RGB to YCBCR conversion. In the RGB to YCBCR conversion, we gained the ability to separate the luminance and the colors of an image, but lost the ability to tweak any individual color, that is RG or B. No real information is lost, we just found a different way to represent the same information. Similarly, when we convert an image to a coefficient based representation like DCT, we gain the ability to tweak an image's high and low frequency components, but lose the ability to edit every individual pixel. Now what do I mean by high and low frequency changes? Take a look at this region. Do you see this alternating pattern? Notice how there is a large fluctuating change of values in a small region. Now look at this region. Do you see a gradient of small changes? What I want you to do is not look at the exact values themselves, but look at the difference in adjacent elements. Do you notice a pattern? Basically, whenever there is a small difference in values in a fixed region, it is a low frequency change, and a bigger difference in that same region's size is a high frequency change. Our eyes are primitively very good at noticing low frequency changes as they help us isolate objects in nature like a tree from a river. But they are bad at noticing high frequency changes like seeing a chessboard from 50 meters away. Now, how does DCT take advantage of this fact? Let's start where we last left off. We currently have an image that is separated into its luminance and chroma channels. The chroma channels have already been downsized due to chroma subsampling. The following process is shown for the luminance channel, but it is also applicable for the CB and CR channels. DCT first divides the whole image into 8 by 8 pixel blocks or matrices called minimum coded units, that is MCUs. We will call them blocks for now. The algorithm takes these 8 by 8 blocks or 64 pixels and returns a coefficient matrix of cosine waves ranging from cos 0x 0y to cos 7x 7y. For a simpler analogy, think of a cake. If you have a completely prepared cake, Can you deduce all the ingredients that went into its making without any external information? That is what the DCT does. Let's have a look at an 8x8 matrix of 64 values. Equipped with our knowledge of DCT, let's run the transform on this array and see what it returns. Okay, now let's decode this output. Using the cake analogy, you can think of the coefficients as the quantity of ingredients that went into the making of our cake, that is the 8x8 block. Here, a negative coefficient refers to inverting the cosine pattern. So, we used 608.62 parts of cos 0x 0y, then overlaid negative 30.19 parts of cos 1x 0y, followed by overlaying 4.47 parts of cos 0x 1y, and so on. These cosine waves are like Lego blocks. A single piece on its own does not make sense, but you can build beautiful castles using a few primitive pieces. Put simply, when we overlay all of these cosine waves multiplied by their respective coefficients, we should get our input back, and we do. This process of reconverting the frequency representation into the original value representation is known as the inverse discrete cosine transform, or IDCT. You can think of the inverse DCT as the recipe, the cosine waves as our ingredients, and the coefficients as our quantity. Just remember that when we apply DCT, we convert the raw data of our image, that is the pixel values, into a collection of cosine waves and their respective coefficients. Once these cosine waves are multiplied with the respective coefficients and added back together, we get our original image. Usually, a 8x8 block in a normal image always has large low frequency coefficients and smaller high frequency coefficients. Using our cake analogy, the high frequency components are like fondants and dressings on top of a cake, and the low frequency components are like flour and eggs. The cake mainly comprises of flour and eggs, not the dressings. To see an interactive example of DCT, check out this site. They have made a brilliant showcase visualizing the way DCT works. I highly recommend it. Now we come to the real cherry on top. Just like how the color conversion to YCBCR prepared the image for chroma subsampling where the actual compression occurred, the DCT prepares the image for the next step, quantization. Remember how I said the human eye is better at detecting low frequency changes? Well, quantization makes use of this fact in an extremely ingenious manner. When we run a DCT, we essentially separate an image's low and high frequency components. In this table, the top left portion represents the low frequency cosine waves, and the frequency increases as we go towards the bottom right. What quantization does is that it divides the whole matrix by a quantization table and then rounds it off. The quantization table contains bigger values towards the bottom right and smaller values at the top left. In other words, quantization almost completely removes the dressings and fondants. This removal is extremely crucial in the next step of JPEG, run length and Huffman encoding. You will learn more about it in the next video. If we divide an already small value by a large denominator and then round it off, the answer is always going to be 0 or something close to it. The quantization tables are specifically tweaked and carefully prepared to trick human perception. Anytime you see this percentage slider in any software for changing the quality of the exported JPEG image, it is just swapping out different quantization tables underneath the software. Let's see an example. Here is an image matrix containing all the values. Let's run the DCT on it. When we run our DCT, we get this coefficient matrix. Now, here is a quantization table that is provided by the Joint Photographic Experts group. We first divide the matrix by the quantization table and round off the decimal values. This results in a quantized DCT table. To retrieve a usable DCT matrix, we simply multiply this quantized table by the quantization values that were provided. This is called as dequantization. We see that only a small portion of the matrix is needed to create an almost exact replica of the image. Sure, we lost some information when we rounded off the values, but the resulting image was nearly identical. Now, the same process is done for the chrominance channels with other slightly tweaked quantization tables. And that's it. That is how the discrete cosine transform and the quantization steps take place. This video finally covered all the lossy algorithms that take place in the compression of an image. In the next step, we will see how JPEG uses the result provided by the quantization step in two extremely clever and lossless algorithms. That's it for now. Catch you all in the next one. Bye.